Kelly stared at her phone screen, reading the same text message for the fifth time. The words hadn't changed, but somehow she kept hoping they would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Something that didn't shatter 23 years of marriage with 11 brutal words. Pack your bags tonight. Miranda's moving in this weekend. 23 years, 2 kids, a mortgage, a life built brick by brick, and David thought he could demolish it with a text message sent at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday while she was grocery shopping for his favorite dinner. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The fluorescent lights of Whole Foods suddenly felt too bright, too harsh against Kelly's skin as she clutched her phone. Around her, other shoppers continued their mundane routines, comparing apple prices, debating organic versus conventional, living their normal lives while hers imploded in aisle 7. She'd been reaching for David's preferred brand of Greek yogurt when the text arrived. The same yogurt she'd been buying for over 2 decades because he claimed all other brands tasted like chalk mixed with regret. Now the irony wasn't lost on her that regret was exactly what she was tasting as she read his message. Kelly's hands trembled as she abandoned her half-full cart and walked toward the parking lot. The Seattle drizzle matched her mood perfectly, gray, persistent, and utterly uninviting. She sat in her Honda Pilot, the same car David had insisted they buy because it was practical for the family, and tried to process what had just happened. Miranda. She knew that name, Miranda Chand, the 28-year-old marketing coordinator at David's architectural firm, the same Miranda who'd started working there 8 months ago, fresh out of graduate school with ideas about revolutionizing client engagement and a wardrobe that cost more than Kelly's monthly grocery budget. The same Miranda whom David had mentioned increasingly often during dinner conversations, always with a professional detachment that now felt calculated and rehearsed. Miranda suggested we try a more contemporary approach to the Henderson project. Miranda brought in these amazing Vietnamese spring rolls for the office. Miranda's presentation on sustainable building materials was really insightful. Each mention had felt innocent enough at the time. Kelly had even felt proud that David was mentoring a young colleague, helping her navigate the male-dominated world of architecture. She'd suggested they invite Miranda and her boyfriend to their annual summer barbecue. She doesn't have a boyfriend, David had said quickly. She's focused on her career right now. The memory hit Kelly like a physical blow. How had she missed it? How had she been so naive? Her phone buzzed with another text from David. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We can discuss arrangements tomorrow." Arrangements? As if 23 years of marriage could be reduced to logistics and paperwork? As if their life together was nothing more than a lease agreement that had expired? Kelly drove home on autopilot, muscle memory guiding her through the familiar streets of their Bellevue neighborhood. Past the coffee shop where she and David had their first official date. Past the park where they'd taught their son Marcus to ride a bike. Past the elementary school where their daughter Sophia had performed in her first play, dressed as a sunflower while David recorded everything on his old camcorder. Their house came into view, a custom-built contemporary that David had designed himself early in their marriage. He'd spent months perfecting every detail, every angle, claiming he was creating their forever home. The irony was suffocating. Kelly pulled into the driveway and noticed David's BMW wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. He was probably with Miranda right now, planning their new life together while leaving Kelly to pack up the remnants of her old one. Inside, the house felt different somehow. The family photos lining the hallway seemed to mock her. Images of birthday parties, graduations, anniversaries, vacations, all those moments that had felt so permanent, so unshakable. The wedding photo from 2001 showed her and David laughing at something the photographer had said, David's hand protectively wrapped around her waist. She'd been 24 then, the same age Marcus was now. Young, naive, and absolutely certain that love conquered everything. Kelly walked to their bedroom, her bedroom, she supposed now, and stared at the king-sized bed they'd shared for over 2 decades. How many conversations had they had lying there? How many dreams had they shared? Plans made, fears conquered together. The burgundy comforter they'd picked out during a weekend trip to Portland suddenly felt foreign, as if it belonged to someone else's life. Her phone rang. David's name appeared on the screen. "Kelly, we need to talk." His voice was steady, businesslike, as if he were discussing a client proposal rather than ending their marriage. "Now you want to talk?" Kelly's voice came out sharper than she'd intended. "After sending me a text message like I'm some tenant you're evicting?" "I know this is difficult."
Difficult? Kelly laughed, but there was no humor in it. David, I've been your wife for 23 years. I've supported every career move, every dream, every crazy idea you've had. I gave up my graphic design career to raise our children while you built your firm. I've been to every office party, every client dinner, every industry event. I've listened to you complain about work stress, celebrated every promotion, and held you when your father died. And you think destroying our marriage deserves a text message? There was silence on the other end. Kelly could hear office sounds in the background. Phones ringing, muffled conversations, the normal bustle of David's workplace, where he was probably calling from his corner office, while his colleagues remained blissfully unaware that he'd just imploded his family. "I didn't plan for this to happen," David finally said. "But don't." Kelly's voice was ice. "Don't you dare make this about love or fate or some midlife crisis revelation. You made a choice. You chose to throw away everything we built together for someone who's closer to our daughter's age than yours. Age is just a number, Kelly. You know that." The casual dismissal in his tone sent rage coursing through Kelly's veins. Age is just a number? David, she was in kindergarten when we got married. She was learning to tie her shoes when we were planning our future. She was in high school when Sophia was born. Another pause. Kelly could picture David loosening his tie, the same nervous gesture he'd made during every difficult conversation throughout their marriage. "I've already spoken to my lawyer," he continued, his voice returning to that infuriating professional tone. "We can handle this amicably, split everything 50-50. The house will need to be sold, obviously." "Obviously?" Kelly's voice cracked. "This is our home, David. This is where we raised our children, where we hosted Christmas morning and birthday parties, and it's too big for one person, and I'll need to help Miranda pay off her student loans. The market's good right now. We'll both do well." Student loans? The practical concern of a 28-year-old was now going to determine the fate of the home Kelly had lovingly maintained for over 20 years. The home where she'd painted murals in the kids' bedrooms, where she'd nursed them through illnesses, where she'd hosted countless family gatherings and created a lifetime of memories. "What about Marcus and Sophia?" Kelly asked. "Have you thought about how this will affect them?" "They're adults now. Marcus is finishing his master's degree, and Sophia's doing well in her junior year. They'll adjust." Adults? As if turning 24 and 21 had somehow equipped their children with immunity to their parents' divorce? As if the dissolution of the only stable home they'd ever known wouldn't send shockwaves through their lives. Kelly hung up without another word. She walked to the kitchen window and looked out at the garden she'd spent years cultivating. The roses David had surprised her with for their 10th anniversary were in full bloom, their deep red petals a stark contrast to the gray Seattle sky. The vegetable garden where she'd taught both kids about responsibility and patience was thriving with summer tomatoes and herbs. This wasn't just a house. This was the physical manifestation of their life together, and David wanted to sell it to pay his girlfriend's debts? Kelly opened her laptop and began researching divorce lawyers, but her mind was already working on something else entirely. David thought he could discard her like an outdated piece of furniture, replace her with a younger model, and expect her to quietly disappear into whatever life he deemed appropriate for a discarded middle-aged wife. He had no idea who he was dealing with. 23 years of marriage had taught Kelly many things about David Mitchell. his weaknesses, his fears, his carefully constructed professional image, and most importantly, his absolute terror of public embarrassment. He'd built his reputation as a family man and ethical businessman, frequently giving interviews to local magazines about balancing career success with family values. As Kelly scrolled through attorney profiles, a slow smile spread across her face. David wanted to play games? Fine. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail. Kelly had always been better at chess than he was. The next morning, Kelly woke up to the sound of David's key in the front door. She'd barely slept, her mind churning with possibilities and plans. From her bedroom window, she watched him stride up the driveway with the confidence of a man who believed he held all the cards. He was carrying 2 large coffee cups and a bag from their favorite bakery, an oddly domestic gesture for someone who just destroyed their marriage via text message. Kelly quickly threw on her robe and made her way downstairs. David was standing in the kitchen, looking uncomfortable but determined. His usually perfect hair was slightly disheveled, and she noticed he was wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Clearly, he'd spent the night elsewhere.
A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. I brought you coffee, he said, pushing one of the cups across the granite countertop they'd picked out together during their kitchen renovation 5 years ago. And those lemon scones you like from Pike Place Market. The gesture was so absurdly normal that Kelly almost laughed. You think pastries are going to make this better? I think we need to have a civilized conversation about our future, David replied, his tone measured and careful. Kelly, I know this is shocking, but our marriage has been over for a long time. We've been living like roommates for months. Kelly stared at him. Living like roommates? David, just last month we went to dinner for our anniversary. We talked about renovating the guest bathroom. We made love 3 weeks ago. A flush crept up David's neck. We were just going through the motions. You have to admit that. No, I don't have to admit anything. Kelly's voice was steady, but inside she was cataloging every tell, every nervous habit that revealed David's discomfort. What I have to admit is that I've been married to a stranger. The David I married wouldn't have handled this like a coward. I'm trying to make this as easy as possible for everyone involved. Everyone involved? Kelly raised an eyebrow. You mean Miranda? Is she part of this conversation too? Should I expect her to waltz through that door with suggestions about dividing our assets? David's jaw tightened. Miranda has nothing to do with the logistics of our divorce. Our divorce. Kelly let the words hang in the air. Funny how you've already decided that without consulting me. Tell me, David, how long has this been going on? Kelly, how long? Her voice cut through his attempt at deflection. David looked out the window, avoiding her gaze. 3 months. But it's not what you think. We connected intellectually first. She understands my vision for the firm's future in a way that I don't, Kelly finished. Because I was too busy raising your children and managing your household to properly appreciate your architectural genius? That's not fair. Fair? Kelly's composure finally cracked. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been having this conversation before you started sleeping with someone else. Fair would have been marriage counseling. Fair would have been treating me like a human being instead of an obstacle to your midlife crisis. David stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. This is exactly why I wanted to handle this through lawyers. You're being emotional and unreasonable. Emotional? Kelly's voice was dangerously quiet. David, I haven't even started being emotional yet. She walked to the kitchen drawer where they kept important documents and pulled out a thick folder. David's eyes widened slightly as he recognized it. You remember this, don't you? Kelly opened the folder to reveal their mortgage documents, insurance papers, and financial records. All the paperwork for our life together. All the investments we made as a team. All the decisions we made together about our future. Kelly, what are you doing? She pulled out a specific document and placed it on the counter between them. This is the deed to the house. Do you remember what we did when we bought this place? David's face had gone pale. Kelly could see the moment he realized where she was going with this. We put it in my name only because of your firm's liability issues. Remember? You were worried about potential lawsuits affecting our family home, so we structured it to protect our biggest asset. Kelly's smile was razor sharp. Kelly, you can't. Can't what? Keep the house that's legally mine? The house I've maintained, decorated, and turned into a home for 23 years? She pulled out another document. And this is our joint business account that I've been managing for the past decade. The one that receives payments from your firm's biggest clients. The one that I have full legal access to. David's professional composure was cracking. You're talking about theft. I'm talking about what's legally mine. Just like you were talking about what's legally yours when you decided to end our marriage. Kelly gathered the papers back into the folder. You know what's interesting about Miranda's age? She's too young to understand the importance of prenups. Too young to have learned about protecting assets before moving in with a man who's proven he'll discard his family when something shinier comes along. This is blackmail. This is reality. Kelly poured herself coffee from the cup David had brought, taking her time with the cream and sugar. You see, David, you made one crucial mistake. You assumed I was powerless. You assumed that 23 years of marriage had turned me into some helpless dependent who would quietly accept whatever scraps you decided to throw my way.
She took a sip of coffee and continued. But you forgot who you married. You forgot that I was running my own successful graphic design business before I gave it up to support your career. You forgot that I'm the one who's handled all our finances, managed all our investments, and maintained all our business relationships. You forgot that half of your biggest clients became your clients because of connections I made at neighborhood associations, school events, and community fundraisers. David was staring at her as if seeing her for the first time. Good, it was about time. You want Miranda to move into our house? Fine, but it won't be our house anymore. It'll be my house, and I decide who's welcome and who isn't. Kelly set down her coffee cup with deliberate precision. You want to discuss arrangements? Here are my arrangements. You have until Sunday to decide whether you want to try to save our marriage through counseling, or whether you want to proceed with the messiest, most public, most expensive divorce Seattle has ever seen. You're bluffing. Kelly walked to the kitchen laptop and opened it. With a few keystrokes, she pulled up the website for Seattle Met magazine. Remember this interview you did last year? David Mitchell, Building Dreams and Family Values? It has over 50,000 views online. I'm sure their readers would be fascinated by a follow-up story about how quickly family values can change. David's face went ashen. Kelly, you wouldn't. Try me. She clicked to another browser tab, revealing the contact information for the journalist who'd written the article. Melissa Rodriguez seems like such a thorough reporter. I bet she'd love to do an exposé on successful architects who abandon their families for employees young enough to be their daughters. My professional reputation should have been something you considered before you decided to blow up our family. Kelly closed the laptop. But here's the thing, David. I'm not unreasonable. I'm giving you a choice. We can work on our marriage, go to counseling, and figure out how to rebuild what we had. Or you can have your midlife crisis, but it's going to cost you everything you've worked for. David was quiet for a long moment, staring at the folder of documents on the counter. Kelly could practically see the wheels turning in his head as he calculated the potential damage to his career, his firm, his carefully constructed image. What about Miranda? He finally asked. What about her? Kelly's voice was ice cold. She's a grown woman who chose to get involved with a married man. She can deal with the consequences of her choices just like the rest of us. David picked up his coffee cup with shaking hands. I need time to think. You have until Sunday. That gives you 4 days to decide what matters more, your family or your fantasy. Kelly walked toward the kitchen door, then paused. Oh, and David, if I were you, I'd think very carefully about where I spend the next few nights. Because if Miranda's already picking out curtains for my house, she's about to learn a very expensive lesson about presumption. As David left through the front door, Kelly allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. He thought he was playing chess,
But he'd forgotten the most important rule of the game. Never underestimate your opponent's ability to see several moves ahead. Her phone buzzed with a text from her daughter Sophia. "Mom, Dad called and said you guys are having some problems. Are you okay?" Kelly stared at the message, her heart clenching. David was already trying to control the narrative, probably painting himself as the victim of an unreasonable wife. But Kelly had news for him. If he wanted to play dirty, she'd show him what dirty really looked like. Kelly's fingers hovered over her phone keyboard as she crafted a response to Sophia. Her daughter deserved honesty, but she also deserved protection from the ugliness that David had unleashed. After several attempts, she settled on, "Your father and I are working through some challenges. Can we talk this weekend when you're home from college?" The response came back immediately. "I'm driving up tonight. Dad sounded really weird on the phone." Of course, David had already reached out to the kids. He was probably trying to paint Kelly as the unstable one, the wife who couldn't handle his career growth or personal evolution. She'd seen this playbook before from divorced friends. The cheating spouse always became the victim of an unreasonable partner who refused to understand. Kelly's phone rang. It was her sister, Janet, calling from Portland. "Kelly, what the hell is going on? Marcus just called me asking if I knew why Dad was talking about selling the house." Kelly closed her eyes. David's moving fast, probably trying to create facts on the ground before she could mount any resistance. David's having an affair. He wants a divorce. The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds before Janet exploded. "That spineless piece of shit. After everything you've sacrificed for his career, after all those years of playing the perfect architect's wife at those pretentious dinner parties." "Janet, no, let me finish. Remember when he wanted to start his own firm and you liquidated your retirement account to help fund it? Remember when his mother was dying and you flew to Phoenix every other weekend for 6 months to help care for her while he was too busy with work to take time off? Remember when—"
I remember everything, Kelly interrupted quietly, but remembering isn't going to fix this. Maybe not, but it sure as hell should factor into how you handle it. Janet's voice softened slightly. "What's your plan?" I gave him until Sunday to decide if he wants to try counseling or proceed with a very public, very expensive divorce. Good. And in the meantime? Kelly looked around her kitchen, her gaze settling on the family photos covering the refrigerator. Birthday parties, graduations, Christmas mornings, vacation snapshots. A visual timeline of the life David was so eager to discard. In the meantime, I'm going to remind him exactly what he's throwing away. After hanging up with Janet, Kelly spent the next hour making phone calls. First to Dr. Sarah Chen, the marriage counselor her friend Rebecca had recommended after her own marital crisis. Then to Patricia Hawkins, the divorce attorney with a reputation for absolutely destroying cheating husbands in court. Insurance, she told herself. Options. By early afternoon, Kelly had transformed into someone she barely recognized, a woman with a mission and the resources to accomplish it. She showered, styled her hair, and put on the navy blue dress David had always said was his favorite. If he was going to see her today, she wanted to look like the woman he was losing, not the victim he expected her to become. Her first stop was David's office building in downtown Seattle. She'd visited Mitchell & Associates countless times over the years, bringing him forgotten documents or joining him for client dinners. The receptionist, a young woman named Ashley, brightened when she saw Kelly approach. "Mrs. Mitchell, how lovely to see you. Are you here to surprise Mr. Mitchell?" "Something like that," Kelly smiled. "Is he in?" "He's in a meeting with the Henderson Project team, but I can let him know you're here." "Actually, I was hoping to speak with Miranda Chen first. Is she available?" Ashley's expression flickered, just for a moment, but Kelly caught it. Office gossip traveled fast, and clearly the receptionist had picked up on something unusual about David's relationship with his young colleague. "I'll check if she's available," Ashley said carefully. Kelly waited in the sleek lobby, studying the awards and magazine features lining the walls. David's professional success was on full display here. Architecture awards, community service recognition, and that Seattle Met profile she'd mentioned earlier. Everything he was terrified of losing.
Miranda appeared within minutes, looking polished and professional in an expensive-looking blazer that probably cost more than Kelly spent on clothes in 3 months. She was petite, with glossy black hair, and the kind of confident bearing that came from never having to compromise or sacrifice for anyone else's dreams. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Miranda Chen. Ashley said you wanted to speak with me?" Kelly extended her hand. "Please, call me Kelly. I thought it was time we met properly." Confusion flickered across Miranda's face, but she gestured toward a small conference room. "Of course. Would you like some coffee?" "That would be lovely." They settled across from each other at a polished mahogany table that David recognized from David's design portfolio, another example of his attention to detail when it came to impressing clients versus the casual dismissal he'd shown his own wife. "I have to say, I'm a bit surprised to see you here," Miranda began carefully. "David mentioned you two were working through some things." "Is that what he called it?" Kelly's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How refreshing to hear his perspective. I'm curious, Miranda, what exactly did David tell you about our marriage?" Miranda shifted in her seat. "I don't think it's appropriate for me to—" "Oh, but I think it is." Kelly's voice remained pleasant, conversational. "You see, you're sleeping with my husband. That makes this very much my business." The younger woman's composure cracked slightly. "Mrs. Mitchell, I understand this is difficult." "Do you?" Kelly leaned forward. "Do you really understand what this is? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like a 28-year-old who's convinced herself that she's special enough to break up a 23-year marriage." "Our relationship isn't about breaking up anything," Miranda said defensively. "David and I connected on a professional level first. We share the same vision for sustainable architecture, the same passion for innovative design. It's about intellectual compatibility." Kelly laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to unsettle Miranda more than anger would have. "Intellectual compatibility. That's beautiful, really. Tell me, during all this intellectual connection, did David mention that I'm the one who helped him develop his sustainable design philosophy? That I spent 2 years researching green building materials and energy-efficient systems when he was first starting his firm?" Miranda's face paled slightly. "Or did he tell you about the time I spent 6 months learning AutoCAD so I could help him with client presentations when he couldn't afford to hire a proper staff?" Kelly continued. "What about the networking events I attended, the potential clients I cultivated through volunteer work, the business connections I made at Marcus's baseball games and Sophia's school plays? I don't see how any of this—" "You don't see because you don't want to see," Kelly's voice hardened. "You want to believe that David's marriage was some loveless arrangement, that I'm some bitter housewife who never understood his brilliant mind. It's easier than acknowledging that you're destroying a family for a man who's old enough to be your father." Miranda straightened in her chair. "Age is irrelevant when two people genuinely care about each other." "Care about each other?" Kelly pulled out her phone and scrolled to a photo from last month's anniversary dinner. "This was taken 4 weeks ago. Does David look like a man trapped in a loveless marriage?" The photo showed David laughing at something Kelly had said, his hand covering hers across the restaurant table. His expression was relaxed, genuinely happy, nothing like the cold, businesslike demeanor Miranda had probably grown accustomed to seeing. "People change," Miranda said weakly. "Yes, they do, especially when they're being manipulated by someone who sees them as a ticket to financial security." Kelly put her phone away. "Tell me, Miranda, how much are those student loans David's so worried about helping you pay off?" The question hit its mark. Miranda's professional composure evaporated entirely. "That's none of your business." "Actually, it became my business the moment my husband decided your debt was more important than our mortgage." Kelly stood up. "Here's what's going to happen, Miranda. You're going to end this affair immediately. You're going to transfer to another firm. I'm sure David's professional connections can help you find something suitable. And you're going to disappear from our lives before I decide to make this situation very public and very uncomfortable for everyone involved." "You can't threaten me." "I'm not threatening you. I'm offering you a choice." Kelly gathered her purse. You can leave quietly and preserve what's left of your professional reputation, or you can stay and discover exactly how messy things can get when a woman with nothing left to lose decides to fight back. Miranda stood as well, her hands shaking slightly. David won't let you intimidate me. David? Kelly's smile was razor sharp. Honey, David's going to throw you under the bus the moment his career is threatened. That's what weak men do when they're caught. They save themselves and sacrifice the women who believed their lies. She moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Miranda. That house you're planning to move into this weekend, the one David told you belonged to both of us, it doesn't. It's in my name only, and you'll be trespassing if you set foot on my property. As Kelly walked back through the lobby, she could feel Ashley's curious gaze following her. By tomorrow, the entire office would know that David Mitchell's wife had paid an unexpected visit to his young colleague. The gossip mill would do half her work for her. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. Miranda said you came by the office. We need to talk. Kelly texted back, Sunday, not before. She had 3 more stops to make before Sophia arrived from college, and each one was going to remind David of exactly how much power she wielded in his carefully constructed world. Kelly's next destination was the Bellevue Country Club, where she and David had been members for 15 years. The monthly dues were substantial, but David insisted the networking opportunities were essential for his business. What he didn't realize was that Kelly had cultivated her own network there, one that included the wives of his biggest clients. She found exactly who she was looking for at the club's restaurant, Christine Morrison, whose husband owned the largest development company in the Pacific Northwest. Christine was having lunch with 2 other women Kelly recognized from various charity events, Sarah Williams, wife of a prominent tech CEO, and Diana Foster, whose husband ran a major construction firm. Kelly, Christine's face lit up as she approached their table. What perfect timing! We were just discussing the upcoming fundraiser for the Children's Hospital.
I'd love to help with that, Kelly said, accepting Christine's invitation to join them. Actually, I was hoping to catch up with all of you about something else as well. Over the next hour, Kelly masterfully steered the conversation toward family values, the importance of stability in business partnerships, and the challenges of maintaining trust in professional relationships. She didn't mention David's affair directly. She didn't need to. These women were intelligent, experienced, and understood exactly what Kelly was really talking about. It's so important to know who you're really doing business with, Sarah observed, stirring her iced tea thoughtfully. My husband always says that a man's character in his personal life reflects his integrity in business. Absolutely, Diana agreed. When someone proves they can't be trusted with their most important commitments, it raises questions about all their other commitments. Kelly nodded sadly. It's heartbreaking when people you've trusted for years show you who they really are. Sometimes the mask just slips, you know? Christine reached over and squeezed Kelly's hand. If you ever need anything at all, please don't hesitate to call. By the time Kelly left the country club, she knew that word would spread through their social circle like wildfire. These women lunched together regularly, played tennis together, served on charity boards together. More importantly, they influenced their husbands' business decisions. David's reputation as a trustworthy family man was about to take a serious hit in the circles that mattered most to his career. Her third stop was the most emotionally difficult: the offices of Thompson Reed and Associates, the law firm where David's best friend Mark worked as a senior partner. Mark and his wife Jennifer had been part of their inner circle for over a decade. Their families had vacationed together, celebrated holidays together, supported each other through various crises. Mark's secretary recognized Kelly immediately and waved her back toward his office. She found him reviewing contracts, his reading glasses perched on his nose in a way that reminded her of David when he was concentrating on blueprints. Kelly! Mark stood up, genuine warmth in his voice. This is a nice surprise. What brings you downtown? I need legal advice, Mark, and I need it from someone I trust. The warmth in Mark's expression shifted to concern as he gestured for her to sit down. What's going on? Kelly had rehearsed this conversation during the drive over, but sitting across from Mark, someone who'd known her family for years, who'd watched her children grow up, who'd celebrated David's professional successes alongside them, made it harder than she'd anticipated. David's having an affair. He wants a divorce. Mark's face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, and finally, anger. Jesus Christ, Kelly, are you sure? He told me himself, sent me a text yesterday telling me to pack my bags because his girlfriend is moving into our house. Kelly's voice was steady, but she could see the impact her words were having on Mark. A text message? Mark's voice was incredulous. He ended your marriage with a text message? Apparently, efficiency is important when you're discarding a 23-year relationship. Mark ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Kelly had seen him make countless times during their friendship. Kelly, I had no idea. David never said anything about being unhappy. At the Henderson client dinner last month, you two seemed fine. Better than fine, actually. We were fine. At least, I thought we were. Kelly, I need to know my options. Real options, not the sanitized version David's probably hoping for. For the next 45 minutes, Mark outlined the legal landscape of their situation. Kelly's strategic positioning of assets over the years, the house in her name, her access to business accounts, her documentation of contributions to David's career, put her in a surprisingly strong position. The affair actually works in your favor, Mark explained. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can still impact property division and spousal support, especially given the length of your marriage and your career sacrifices. What about his business? Mark's expression grew serious. That's where things get complicated. You could potentially claim a portion of the firm's value, especially given your documented contributions to its growth. But that would require a full business valuation, discovery of all financial records, depositions from employees and clients. In other words, a very public, very messy process.
Exactly. The kind of process that would make David's affair very public knowledge in professional circles. Mark paused. Kelly, I have to ask, is that what you want? Because once we go down that road, there's no coming back from it. Kelly thought about Miranda's confident assumption that she could waltz into another woman's life and take over. She thought about David's casual dismissal of their marriage, his business-like tone when discussing the destruction of their family. She thought about her children learning that their father valued his midlife crisis more than the stability they'd always known. I want David to understand the consequences of his choices, she said finally. I want him to realize that actions have costs, and some things can't be undone with a text message and a coffee from Pike Place Market. Mark nodded slowly. I'll start preparing the paperwork. In the meantime, document everything. Every conversation, every text message, every interaction. And Kelly, be careful. When men like David feel cornered, they can become unpredictable. Kelly's phone rang as she was leaving Mark's office. Sophia's name appeared on the screen. Mom, I just got to the house, but your car isn't here. Where are you? I'm in downtown Seattle. I'll be home in about an hour. Mom, what's really going on? Dad called me again, and he sounded completely freaked out. He kept asking if you'd said anything to me about his work or his colleagues. Kelly felt a surge of satisfaction. David was already feeling the pressure, already wondering how far she was willing to go. We'll talk when I get home, sweetheart. And Mom, I stopped by Dad's office to see if he wanted to grab lunch, but the receptionist said he left early. She looked really uncomfortable when I mentioned I was your daughter. The gossip was already starting. Perfect. Kelly's final stop was the most important, her old graphic design studio. She'd sold the business 8 years ago to focus on supporting David's growing firm, but she'd maintained a friendship with Emma Rodriguez, the woman who'd bought it. Emma had expanded the business significantly and now employed 12 designers working with high-profile clients throughout the Pacific Northwest. Kelly, Emma embraced her warmly. It's been too long. How are things? Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Kelly settled into the familiar creative chaos of the studio. Design boards covering the walls, color swatches scattered across tables, the energetic buzz of creative professionals solving problems. Emma, I might be interested in getting back into the business. Would you consider taking on a senior partner? Emma's eyes widened. Are you serious? Kelly, that would be incredible. Your client relationship skills were legendary, and we could really use someone with your experience. They spent an hour discussing possibilities, potential client bases, and the logistics of Kelly rejoining the workforce she'd left behind to support her husband's dreams. By the time she left, they'd outlined a partnership agreement that would give Kelly both financial independence and professional fulfillment. As Kelly drove home, her phone buzzed constantly with text messages from David, each one more desperate than the last. Kelly, we need to talk immediately. Whatever you're doing, stop. We can work this out privately. People at the office are asking questions. This is affecting my business. Miranda is upset. You had no right to intimidate her. I'm coming to the house tonight whether you like it or not. Kelly smiled as she read the last message. David was panicking, his carefully controlled facade cracking under pressure. He'd spent years believing that Kelly was dependent on him, that she needed him more than he needed her. Now he was discovering that he'd built his life on quicksand. When she pulled into her driveway, she saw Sophia's car parked there, and through the front windows, she could see her daughter pacing in the living room, phone pressed to her ear. Probably talking to Marcus, trying to understand what was happening to their family. Kelly took a deep breath. The easy part was over. Now came the real challenge, protecting her children while dismantling the life David thought he could walk away from without consequences. Her phone rang one more time. David's name appeared on the screen, but Kelly let it go to voicemail. She had a daughter to reassure and a future to rebuild, and David Mitchell was going to learn that some bridges burn faster than others. Kelly found Sophia in the kitchen, stress-eating leftover Chinese takeout while frantically typing on her laptop. Her daughter looked up with red-rimmed eyes that reminded Kelly painfully of David when he was overwhelmed. Mom, finally, I've been calling Dad for the past hour, and he's not answering. Marcus is driving up from Oregon tomorrow morning. What the hell is happening?
Kelly sat down across from her daughter, noting the scattered textbooks and half-finished assignments spread across the table. Sophia was supposed to be focusing on her junior year finals, not managing her parents' marital crisis. Your father is having an affair. He's asked for a divorce. Sophia's fork clattered against her plate. Are you kidding me? Dad? Mr. Family Values who lectures me about making good choices and thinking about consequences? The same one. Who is she? Sophia's voice was tight with anger. A colleague at his firm, someone closer to your age than mine. Sophia's face cycled through emotions, disbelief, disgust, and finally rage. That's gross, Mom. That's really, really gross. And what about Marcus? What about me? Did he think about how this would affect us? Kelly reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. Your father is going through something I don't understand, but I want you to know that this has nothing to do with you or Marcus. This is about choices he made. Choices, Sophia repeated bitterly, like choosing to destroy our family for some office hookup. Sophia. No, Mom, this is insane. Last month he was helping me with my resume, talking about internships, asking about my boyfriend. He seemed totally normal. How long has this been going on? He says 3 months. Sophia's laptop chimed with an incoming video call. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. Answer it, Kelly said. He deserves to hear this from us, not from whatever version your father decides to tell him. Marcus appeared on screen, his face already creased with worry. At 24, Kelly's son had inherited David's analytical mind, but her emotional intelligence. He was working on his master's degree in environmental engineering at Oregon State, and Kelly could see his dorm room in the background, neat, organized, focused. Mom, what's going on? Dad called me this morning talking about changes in the family structure, like he was presenting a business proposal. Then Sophia texted saying there was some kind of emergency. Kelly took a deep breath and explained the situation again, watching her son's expression shift from confusion to disbelief to anger. When she finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. So, let me get this straight, he finally said. Dad's throwing away 23 years of marriage for someone who's basically my age, and he thought the appropriate way to handle this was to send you a text message? That about sums it up. Jesus Christ. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, another gesture inherited from David. Mom, what do you need from us? Do you want me to come home right now? I want you both to focus on your studies and let me handle your father. Sophia looked up sharply. Handle him how? Before Kelly could answer, they heard the distinctive sound of David's BMW pulling into the driveway. Through the kitchen window, they could see him getting out of the car, his movements sharp and agitated. He's here, Sophia said unnecessarily. Marcus, I'll call you back, Kelly said to the laptop screen. Mom, wait. Trust me, sweetheart. I know what I'm doing. David walked through the front door without knocking, his face flushed with anger and desperation. He looked like he'd been running his hands through his hair repeatedly, and his usual immaculate appearance was disheveled. Kelly, we need to talk, now. He noticed Sophia at the kitchen table. Sweetheart, could you give your mother and me some privacy? No, Sophia said firmly. This affects me too. I'm staying. David's jaw tightened. Sophia, this is between adults. I'm 21 years old, Dad. I'm an adult. And since you're apparently destroying our family, I think I have a right to hear whatever you have to say. Kelly felt a surge of pride watching her daughter stand her ground. David looked between them, clearly calculating his options. Fine, he said finally. Kelly, whatever game you're playing, it needs to stop. I've had 3 clients call me today asking if everything's okay at home. My own receptionist is treating me like I have a contagious disease. And Miranda is talking about transferring to another firm because she feels unsafe and harassed. Unsafe? Kelly's voice was dangerously quiet. I had one conversation with her, a perfectly civil conversation. You threatened her. I informed her of the reality of her situation. Sophia looked back and forth between her parents like she was watching a tennis match. Wait, back up. You talked to Dad's girlfriend? I introduced myself, Kelly said calmly. I thought it was important that she understood exactly what she was getting involved in. David's face was getting redder. You had no right. I had every right. She's sleeping with my husband. That makes it very much my business. Kelly, you're destroying my professional reputation over personal issues that should be handled privately.
Personal issues? Kelly stood up slowly. David, you sent me a text message ending our marriage. You told me to pack my bags so your girlfriend could move into my house. You called our children to announce changes in the family structure like you were reorganizing a corporation. You made this public the moment you decided our marriage was disposable. Sophia was staring at her father with undisguised disgust. Dad, you really sent Mom a breakup text? Like she was some girl you'd been dating for a few weeks? David looked uncomfortable. The situation was complicated. I thought it would be easier. Easier for who? Sophia's voice was rising. Easier for you? Because it sure as hell wasn't easier for Mom. And it's not going to be easier for Marcus when he finds out his father is a coward who can't even have difficult conversations face to face. Sophia, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You traded our family for someone my age and expected everyone to just go along with it. Sophia slammed her laptop shut. You know what, Dad? I'm glad Mom talked to your girlfriend. Someone should explain to her what kind of person she's getting involved with. David turned back to Kelly, his desperation becoming more apparent. Kelly, please, we can work this out quietly, privately. There's no need to involve other people. Do other people like our children? Other people like your clients and colleagues? Or just other people like Miranda? Kelly's voice was ice cold. You should have thought about privacy before you decided to blow up our lives. I'll call off the divorce. We can try counseling. The offer hung in the air like a lifeline, but Kelly could see the calculation in David's eyes. This wasn't about saving their marriage. This was about damage control. You'll call off the divorce? Kelly repeated. Just like that?
What about Miranda? What about your intellectual connection and shared vision for sustainable architecture? David's face flushed deeper. I made a mistake. I got caught up in something that wasn't real. So 3 months of lying to your wife and planning to abandon your family was just a mistake? A momentary lapse in judgment? Yes. Kelly looked at her husband, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. The man she'd married would never have reduced their marriage to a series of strategic moves designed to minimize his professional embarrassment. The man she'd married would have fought for their relationship before it got to this point, not after his affair had become inconvenient. No, she said simply. No what? No, David, I'm not interested in counseling with someone who thinks adultery is a mistake and marriage is a business decision. I'm not interested in being the fallback option when your midlife crisis becomes too expensive. David's composure finally cracked completely. Kelly, you don't understand what you're doing. If this gets out, if clients start pulling their business, it won't just affect me, it'll affect you too. Your divorce settlement, your financial security, everything. Are you threatening me? I'm trying to make you see the reason. Kelly walked to the kitchen counter and picked up her phone. With deliberate precision, she opened her contacts and scrolled to Melissa Rodriguez, the journalist from Seattle Met. Kelly, what are you doing? I'm making a choice, David. The same way you made a choice when you decided Miranda Chen was worth more than 23 years of marriage. She held up the phone so he could see the screen. One phone call, and your building dreams and family values becomes local architect abandons family for employee half his age. You wouldn't. Try me. Sophia was watching this exchange with wide eyes, finally understanding the scope of what her mother was capable of. David looked between Kelly and the phone, his face cycling through panic, anger, and finally defeat. What do you want? I want you to understand that actions have consequences, Kelly said. I want you to realize that some things can't be fixed with money or charm or professional connections. And I want you to know that the woman you thought you could discard without a second thought is about to show you exactly what you're losing. Kelly's finger hovered over Melissa Rodriguez's contact information. You have until Sunday to decide, David. Marriage counseling with a real commitment to rebuilding what you destroyed, or the messiest, most public divorce Seattle has ever seen. But know this, if you choose divorce, I'm not going quietly. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man breaks up a 23-year marriage with a text message. David stood in the kitchen doorway, looking smaller than Kelly had ever seen him. For the first time since this nightmare began, she could see genuine fear in his eyes. Good. It was about time he understood what losing everything actually felt like. David left without another word, but not before Kelly saw him glance at her phone one more time, as if the device itself had become a weapon pointed at his chest. After his BMW disappeared down the street, Sophia turned to her mother with a mixture of awe and concern. Mom, that was intense. Are you really going to call that reporter? Only if I have to, Kelly set her phone down carefully. Your father has spent our entire marriage believing that I need him more than he needs me. He's about to learn how wrong he was. The next morning, Kelly woke to 17 missed calls and 12 text messages from David. She scrolled through them while drinking her coffee, noting the progression from anger to panic to outright desperation. Kelly, you're being irrational. Think about what you're doing. I spoke to Miranda. She's willing to transfer to the Portland office. My biggest client just canceled a consultation. This is affecting real people's livelihoods. Please call me. We can fix this. I'm begging you. Don't destroy everything I've worked for.
Kelly deleted the messages without responding. She had more important things to focus on today. Specifically, a 10 a.m. meeting with Emma Rodriguez to finalize their partnership agreement. The design studio buzzed with creative energy as Kelly signed the contracts that would make her a senior partner in Rodriguez Creative. Emma's excitement was infectious as she outlined their expansion plans and the client portfolio Kelly would be managing. I've already had 3 companies ask about bringing you on for major projects, Emma said, sliding a folder across the conference table.
Your reputation for client relationship management never faded, even after you stepped away from the business. Kelly reviewed the proposed client list and felt a spark of anticipation she hadn't experienced in years. These were substantial projects: corporate rebranding campaigns, tech startup launches, nonprofit fundraising materials. Work that would challenge her creatively while providing substantial income. When can you start? Monday, Kelly said without hesitation. I'm ready to get back to work. As she left the studio, Kelly's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Dr. Jennifer Walsh from Seattle Children's Hospital. I believe you know my husband, Tom Walsh. He works with your husband occasionally on commercial projects. Kelly knew the name. Tom Walsh was a successful general contractor who'd collaborated with David on several high-profile bills over the years. Yes, of course. How can I help you? I was hoping we could meet for coffee this afternoon. There's something I think you should know about your husband's recent relationship choices. 2 hours later, Kelly sat across from Dr. Walsh at a quiet cafe in Capitol Hill. Jennifer was an elegant woman in her 50s, with the kind of calm authority that came from years of managing pediatric emergencies. She ordered green tea and got straight to the point. Tom came home yesterday very uncomfortable about something he'd witnessed at the Morrison Project site. You know the Morrisons. Christine introduced you to their family at the country club? Kelly nodded, remembering her lunch conversation from the previous day. Tom was doing a final walkthrough with David when a young woman arrived on site. David introduced her as his design consultant, but their interaction was unprofessional, very unprofessional. Tom said it was obvious they were romantically involved. Kelly felt her jaw tighten. When was this? 3 weeks ago. Tom didn't think much of it initially. He assumed David was having a midlife moment that would pass. But yesterday, after hearing some rumors, he realized the situation was more serious than he'd thought. What kind of rumors? Jennifer leaned forward. Kelly, that young woman has been telling people that she and David are planning to start their own firm. She's been contacting his current clients, suggesting they might want to transition their business to a new company with fresh perspectives and innovative approaches. The betrayal hit Kelly like a physical blow. Not only was David planning to abandon their marriage, he was planning to steal his clients and start over with Miranda. All those years of Kelly networking, cultivating relationships, supporting his career, and he was going to hand it all over to his girlfriend? There's more, Jennifer continued gently. Miranda's been researching commercial real estate in Portland. Tom's contacts in the construction industry say she's been asking about office space for a 2-person architecture firm. Kelly stared into her coffee cup, processing this information. David hadn't just been having an affair. He'd been planning an entire exit strategy. The marriage counseling offer, the panic about his reputation, even his desperate text messages were all just stalling tactics while he and Miranda finalized their business plan. Why are you telling me this? Kelly asked. Because Tom respects you. Because we've watched you support David's career for years, and this feels like theft. Jennifer paused. And because Miranda Chen called our home yesterday, trying to schedule a meeting with Tom about future collaboration opportunities. She's already assuming David's professional relationships will transfer to her. Kelly thanked Jennifer and drove home with her mind racing. David's ultimatum suddenly made perfect sense. He didn't want marriage counseling, and he didn't want a messy divorce. He wanted Kelly to quietly accept whatever settlement he offered while he and Miranda relocate to Portland with his client base intact. She found Sophia in the living room, surrounded by textbooks but clearly unable to concentrate on studying. Marcus had arrived from Oregon and was sitting on the couch, his laptop open to what looked like apartment listings. "Mom, we need to talk," Marcus said as she entered the room. "Sophia told me about Dad's ultimatum, about the reporter and everything." Kelly sat down across from her children, noting the worried expressions on both their faces. "I've been thinking about this all night," Marcus continued, "and I think you should consider just taking whatever settlement Dad offers and walking away from all this drama." "Marcus," Sophia protested.
Hear me out, he said, holding up his hand. Mom, you're 51 years old.
Starting over is going to be hard enough without a public battle that drags everyone through the mud. Maybe it's better to just take the money and build a new life without all this conflict. Kelly studied her son's face, seeing David's pragmatic streak warring with genuine concern for her well-being. What about you, Sophia? Do you think I should just quietly accept whatever your father decides to give me? Hell no, Sophia said immediately. Dad made his choices. He doesn't get to dictate the consequences. But is revenge really worth destroying Dad's career? Marcus asked. Is it worth all the stress and public attention? Mom, you could just take half of everything and start fresh. Find someone who actually deserves you. Kelly looked between her children, one advocating for peace at any cost, the other ready for total war. Both perspectives made sense, and both came from love and concern for her future. Let me ask you both something, Kelly said carefully. If this was happening to your spouse someday, if someone you loved was being treated this way, what would you want them to do? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I'd want them to fight. But I'd also want them to be smart about it, he added. I'd want them to win, not just make a point. Kelly smiled. Then you'll be interested to know that I've been offered a senior partnership at Rodriguez Creative. Starting Monday, I'll be financially independent with a substantial income. Both children looked surprised. I've also discovered that your father and Miranda have been planning to steal his client base and start their own firm in Portland. This whole marriage counseling offer was just a stalling tactic while they finalized their business plan. Sophia's face flushed with anger. That bastard, he was never planning to save the marriage. So what's your plan? Marcus asked, his analytical mind clearly working through the implications. Kelly's phone buzzed with yet another text from David. Kelly, please, I know you're angry, but think about our children. Think about their future. Don't destroy everything out of spite. She showed the message to Marcus and Sophia. He's still trying to manipulate you, Sophia observed, using us as emotional leverage. And he's assuming you're acting out of spite instead of strategy, Marcus added. That's his first mistake. Kelly looked at her children. Adults now, she realized, capable of understanding complex situations and making their own judgments about right and wrong. They'd both chosen to support her, in their own ways, because this was about more than revenge. This was about justice, dignity, and the principle that actions have consequences. Your father thinks he can rewrite history, Kelly said. He thinks he can present this as a mutual decision, a friendly divorce between two people who simply grew apart. He thinks he can protect his reputation while building a new life with Miranda. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden she'd spent years cultivating. But your father forgot something important. He forgot that I know all his secrets, all his professional relationships, all his vulnerabilities. He forgot that I helped build everything he's trying to steal. Kelly turned back to her children. Sunday is in 2 days. Your father will make his choice, and then I'll make mine. But whatever happens, I want you both to know that I'm not the same woman who quietly supported his career while sacrificing my own dreams. That woman is gone, and she's never coming back. Marcus nodded slowly. Good. That woman deserved better than Dad anyway. Sophia grinned, and this woman is going to show him exactly what it looks like. Kelly's phone rang again. This time it was a number she recognized. Miranda Chen, calling from her personal cell phone. Kelly let it ring twice before answering. Hello, Miranda. Mrs. Mitchell, we need to talk. Kelly put the call on speaker so Marcus and Sophia could hear. I'm listening. Miranda's voice was strained, lacking the confident polish from their office meeting. David told me about your ultimatum, about the reporter. This has gone too far.
Has it? Kelly's voice was conversational, almost friendly. I think we're just getting started. Look, I know you're angry, but destroying David's career won't bring your marriage back. It won't change anything. You're right, Kelly said. It won't change the fact that my husband chose to have an affair. It won't change the fact that he ended our marriage with a text message. But it might change how comfortable you feel stealing other people's lives. There was silence on the other end before Miranda spoke again, her voice smaller. I never meant for this to happen. David and we just connected. It wasn't planned. Sophia rolled her eyes and made gagging motions. Marcus shook his head in disgust. Oh, Miranda. Kelly's voice was almost pitying. You still don't understand what you've gotten yourself into, do you? You think this is a love story. You think you and David are star-crossed soulmates who found each other against all odds? We are. You're a 28-year-old woman with student loan debt who fell for a middle-aged man's midlife crisis. And he's a coward who's using you to avoid dealing with his own failures. Kelly's voice hardened. But more importantly, you're both thieves who thought you could steal my husband's client base and start fresh in Portland. The sharp intake of breath on the other end told Kelly that Miranda hadn't expected her to know about their business plans. I don't know what you're talking about. Tom Walsh's construction company, the Morrison Development Group, Richard's Tech Solutions. Should I continue? Kelly rattled off the names of David's biggest clients. You've contacted all of them about transitioning their business to your new firm, haven't you? That's not. We were just exploring options. You were stealing from the man whose career I helped build, whose reputation I helped establish, whose professional relationships I cultivated through 23 years of networking and support. Kelly's voice was ice. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Miranda was crying now. Kelly could hear it in her voice. Mrs. Mitchell, please. David and I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can make it right. How? Kelly asked. How exactly do you plan to fix 23 years of marriage destroyed by 3 months of lies? David doesn't want the divorce anymore. He's willing to end things with me and try counseling. He loves you. He's just confused. Kelly laughed, a sound that made all 3 of her family members look at her sharply. Miranda, honey, David doesn't love me. If he loved me, he wouldn't have had an affair. If he loved me, he wouldn't have planned to steal his clients and run away with you to Portland. If he loved me, he would have talked to me about whatever midlife crisis he was having instead of texting me like a teenager breaking up with his prom date. But he said whatever he thought you wanted to hear, just like he's saying whatever he thinks I want to hear now. That's what weak men do when they get caught. They tell everyone what they think will make the problem go away. Kelly walked to the kitchen window, looking out at her roses. Let me explain something to you, Miranda. David isn't offering counseling because he wants to save our marriage. He's offering counseling because his reputation is more important to him than either of us. The moment he thinks the scandal has blown over, he'll be right back to planning his exit strategy. That's not true. It's completely true. And deep down, you know it. That's why you're calling me instead of letting him handle his own mess. You know he'll throw you under the bus the moment it becomes convenient. Miranda was sobbing openly now. What do you want from us? Kelly looked at her children, both watching her with intense focus. Marcus nodded slightly, and Sophia gave her a thumbs up. They trusted her to handle this right. I want you to disappear, Kelly said simply. I want you to transfer to another city, another firm, another life. I want you to learn that actions have consequences and some lines shouldn't be crossed. And David? David made his choice when he sent me that text message. Now he gets to live with the consequences. Kelly hung up and immediately called Mark's office. Mark, it's Kelly. I've made my decision about how to proceed. Sunday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical for Seattle in late spring. Kelly woke early and made coffee, enjoying the quiet of her house before the storm that was about to break. David had been calling and texting frantically since Friday, but she hadn't responded to any of his messages. At exactly 9 a.m., her doorbell rang. Kelly opened it to find David standing on her front porch, looking haggard and desperate. He was holding a bouquet of roses, the same type he'd planted in her garden for their 10th anniversary.
Kelly, we need to talk. We do. Kelly stepped aside to let him in. I assume you're here to give me your decision about counseling. David set the roses on the hallway table with shaking hands. Yes, I want to try. I want to save our marriage. Do you?
Kelly led him to the living room, where she'd arranged several folders on the coffee table. Because I've learned some interesting things about your plans with Miranda. David's face went white. Kelly, the Portland office space, the client contact list, the business plan you've been developing for the past month. Kelly opened one of the folders, revealing printed emails and documents. Did you really think I wouldn't find out that you were planning to steal my contributions to your career and hand them over to your girlfriend? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Kelly sat down across from him. David, I gave you a choice: real counseling and a genuine commitment to rebuilding our marriage, or a public divorce. But you chose option 3, lie to everyone while you finalized your theft. David's hands were shaking as he reached for the documents. Where did you get these? Does it matter? The point is, I know the truth. I know that your marriage counseling offer was just a stalling tactic. I know that you never had any intention of ending things with Miranda. And I know that you've been planning to steal the client relationships I helped you build. Kelly stood up and walked to the window. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Miranda right now and tell her that your relationship is over permanently. You're going to transfer her to another office immediately, and you're going to sign a post-nuptial agreement that protects my interests in your business. And if I don't? Kelly turned back to him, her expression calm and resolved. Then, at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, Melissa Rodriguez from Seattle Met publishes her exclusive interview with me about successful architect David Mitchell's affair with an employee half his age, his abandonment of his family via text message, and his attempt to steal business assets with his girlfriend. Kelly, you're destroying everything. I'm protecting what's mine. There's a difference. David's phone rang. Miranda's name appeared on the screen. Kelly gestured for him to answer it. Put it on speaker, she said. David's hands were shaking as he accepted the call. Miranda? David, thank God. I just got a call from the Portland office. They're withdrawing their offer. Someone contacted them about my situation, about us. Miranda's voice was panicked. And 3 of the clients I contacted are now asking questions about the ethics of your firm. David, what's happening? Kelly smiled and mouthed networking to David. Miranda, we need to talk, David said, his voice defeated. David, I'm scared. People are asking questions and I don't know what to tell them. My reputation is being destroyed. Miranda, David looked at Kelly, who was watching him with calm attention. I think we made a mistake. I think we need to end this. The silence on the other end stretched for long seconds. Then, you're breaking up with me? Now, when everything is falling apart? I'm married, Miranda. I have been for 23 years. That never changed, no matter what we told ourselves. But you said you loved me. You said we were going to build something together. I was lying, David said quietly, to you and to myself. Miranda hung up without another word. David set his phone down and looked at Kelly. Are you satisfied? Not yet. Kelly picked up another folder from the coffee table. This is a divorce agreement drawn up by my attorney. 50-50 split of all assets, but my contributions to your business are clearly documented. You keep the firm, but I get my fair share of its value, plus spousal support that reflects my career sacrifices. And if I sign this? Then we proceed with an amicable divorce. No media attention, no professional scandal, no public humiliation. You get to keep your reputation, and I get the financial security I earned through 23 years of marriage. David stared at the papers for a long time. Finally, he looked up at Kelly. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am genuinely sorry. I know you are, Kelly said. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there were consequences. You're sorry your plan didn't work. She paused. But David, I don't think you're sorry for what you did. I think you're sorry it turned out to be more expensive than you expected. David signed the papers without another word. 6 months later, Kelly stood in the main conference room of Rodriguez Creative, presenting a rebranding proposal to their biggest client yet. The project would take 8 months to complete and represented the largest contract in the firm's history. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Saw Dad's engagement announcement in the paper. Miranda Chen, age 29. Guess he found someone else with student loans to pay off. Kelly smiled and typed back. Good luck to them both. They deserve each other. Through the conference room windows, she could see Elliott Bay sparkling in the afternoon sun. Her new condo had a view of the water and enough space for Sophia and Marcus to visit whenever they wanted. She'd used her divorce settlement to buy it outright. No mortgage, no dependence on anyone else's financial decisions. Emma knocked on the door. Kelly, the Hartman Group loved your presentation. They want to sign the contract today. Kelly gathered her materials and headed back to work. She had a business to run, a future to build, and a life that finally belonged entirely to her. David had taught her an important lesson, though probably not the one he'd intended. He'd shown her that she was stronger than she'd ever imagined, more capable than she'd ever believed, and more valuable than she'd ever realized. And for that lesson, she was genuinely grateful. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.